basically it's app day. So when we do the app presentations, if you have an app you want to show, it doesn't take too long to show it. We'd like to do 2 or 3. So I chipped in. John came up with the idea of his app. By the way, that Overdrive, as I remember looking it up, is available on a lot of platforms too. It's just not just the one. So I threw this one in. It's just something I use in work. So I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's teleprompting software, which there's a light version, which I think is a trial version. There's a $12 or $20 version, which is the one I have. And they also have a subscriber level where some of the features get turned on that are in the Pro section. So just so to show you what this works. And the interesting thing about this one, if you know what a teleprompter is when you're watching television, most of those talking heads are reading off of a teleprompter. There's not much behind their eyes except reading off the screen. And they are very sophisticated. They have teleprompter operators. Or when a president or a senator speaks in front of a teleprompter, there's people listening, make sure it stops. They'll back it up. And especially the current president who goes off script every once in a while, you'll see his eyes go off script and then he'll look back up over the teleprompter and they'll rekey it for him. So if you're doing a one-person operation, there is a lot of app software to do teleprompting, but most of it requires you, if you get tongue-tied or have to restart, you usually have to go over to the teleprompter and mess with it, or you have some foot devices to try to get it back to the point where you broke off. So I kind of like this one. I was looking for different ones, and I always had to go with something free, but for whatever I paid. This one is the only one that I know of on the iOS environment that actually listens to your voice and moves the words on the screen. So that's basically what we're going to show. And then we have some time and some of the other features are in there. So it has 2 modes. One of them is the script mode, which would be a script and you're reading it. And the other one is for people who want to speak off a note card. That one does not voice control. That one you actually either have to have a foot pedal, which is what the subscriber version gives you the ability to Bluetooth into it. And there's all kinds of Bluetooth devices, including another iOS device to actually move the index cards back and forth. So some people like to speak off of note cards because they're more impromptu, where something has to be exactly read as is. Then you want to make sure it comes off the script because every word has to come across exactly as written. And you can also record your camera and audio if you like. That's a new feature they added in a recent upgrade to it. So I'll just show you how it works. And then I'll show you also how it's set up in my studio. So your scripts can be either entered in here, or you can use any other software, and then you download them in. For example, I'll type my script usually in Google Drive Docs. That's where I did it. It's easier for me to type there. I don't have to save it on a hard drive. It's all straightforward. And then there's a way to download it onto here. I have one already set up if we get some time to show that one. They usually throw a couple in for you to on here when you get the app so you can see how it works. Those ones with the zeros in there, there's some video that I produced in the past. We won't bore you with those. They're very technical. But for example, here's the Gettysburg Address. So I can go in and edit it. You can see we have an edit button down here. You can set some settings up for it. This is when you're actually going to run the script, delete it, or you can actually output it to some other place. You want to send it up. For example, you have the script here and you want to send it back up to your Google Drive or wherever you happen to have a place you want it to share. So just to get a simple picture of how it works, we hit the play button. 87 years ago, our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition of blah, 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 blah. So it can get confused. It's trying to understand my words. All right, so that's basically what it does. And I can go with my finger and actually reset it and to a spot. Maybe if I want to do another take, for example, I might do that. Now the color I picked here is a little odd. I was playing around with it earlier, so I can pick different background colors. And it'll depend on your teleprompting equipment. Now, that's how I'm going to read it here. You're going to read it through a teleprompter. Actually, it will be going through a mirror. So it'll actually be reversed. Teleprompters have a mirror in them. So in order to do it through a teleprompter, you have to put it into a mirror mode. It's right here, but I'm not seeing it. There it is.
There it is.
All right, so now, when it goes through the teleprompter, it goes up through the mirror, and you're actually looking at it into the mirror, which behind the mirror is the camera. So there's a mirror that's usually at a 45-degree angle, and the camera sits behind it, and the iPad sits on a little tray, and you'll be able to see this actually the way we saw it before. Of course, you can still work this way. It has nothing to do with the way it's projected 7 years ago, and so on. Now, why I said shh when we got started, it listens for the ambient noise in the room and tries to set up a filter for that. Some of you might have done that with some sound editing software where you're trying to get rid of the ambient noise. Well, this tries to sense like there's a fan going, or even a TV. I've had a TV running in the background practicing, and it seems to, if you just shh, as you get started, it'll pick up the TV. Let's see, what else is in here? So these are the different settings which you might imagine. You don't have to look at them all, just go down the list so you can see some of them. Options you might want. If you're trying to time it, there's a timer on there. And then you can actually have it record the video or audio, put that into your places on your iPad or whatever. Well, actually, this is only iPad. You'll put it onto your iPad into your video area so that you can then use them later on. And down here at the bottom are some features which just says subscription required. That's a new thing they added with the latest update somewhere at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, where you pay $2 a month. And you can put stage directions. I don't know how fancy you want to get with this, but it basically says, comes up and says, do cartwheel. You know, you don't really want to read, do cartwheel, so there's a way to code in stage instructions, and if you have this other feature, it will skip those. And the remote control with either foot pedals that are Bluetooth or your another device. Let's see.
But this is only for iPad.
I think so. I do really look at their website that carefully so we could double check. It might be a whole different world. And then also they're using the iOS voice libraries. So it is written to that level. I actually have a couple other teleprompter apps that I use, and they're just bare to work with. You really need another person to help out. One of them actually, you pay for it, then you get a free version for your phone. So theoretically with the phone, you can do this and try to get yourself set, and then if you get off sequence, but it doesn't, what they do is they go at a set speed. So you have to set the speed. And then you have to read at that speed. And teleprompter just gives you blah, 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 blah. So if it's going too fast for you, if you get some words that take a little longer for you to get out, you might find to get behind, you have to stop and pause, and then you have a lot of cuts when you go into the actual video editing. You get many, many more cuts. This way, you can go at your own pace and speak at your own speed. And it will pick up the speed as you go faster, and it will slow down automatically. That's the main feature of this software. It does work, which is another important item. Note cards are a little like PowerPoint presentations, nothing special here. You just create these little cards. It has an editor for you to do that, and then it just shows the card. Of course, the person is looking right at the camera, and they can see their little card in there that says what they're supposed to speak about, and they just speak. My daughter likes to do it that way. She speaks right off cards. Now, she pastes them up on the camera. She just takes a little card, pastes it right under the camera. She talks into the camera, she can sort of see the card. But you'll be surprised when you're doing this, if a person's not looking into the camera, it's very obvious. You just have to be off by an inch from the camera lens, then you can see that they're not looking into the camera. So for example, you could use this to record. I've already done one of these where I played it on the iPad and used the iPad camera to record when I'm speaking, but you can see my eyes are looking down, and the camera's looking down at me like this, even though I'm reading in the middle of the screen. So there's no camera behind the glass on. Alright, so that's basically how that works. If you want to add one, you can import them. And it has a list of different things that are hooked, that you have hooked up to it. Google Drive. Let's see. I hope it doesn't ask me for the password. And here's one here. If anybody recognizes this one. So it's adding it in. I can update the title. I hit the create up in the top corner. I hit save. And we'll go into the editor. And turn the mirror text off. Now I found sometimes the mirror text doesn't go off. There you go. See if anybody recognizes this one. On the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk the cows, work all day in the fields, milk the cows again, eat supper, and then go to town and stay past midnight at the meeting of the school board. God made a farmer. Anybody remember this one?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Paul Harvey.
That's it. It's supposed to be one of his famous ones. All right, anyway, that's really the crux of it, other than, the fact that you can do everything you might think you need to do. You can, edit and delete, and we went through all of his settings that are in there. Simple, and to me the best feature is that as you speak, you can go at your own pace. Like when I was reading that one, you might have noticed I had a couple of pauses in it. With a regular teleprompter, I did it with a foot pedal trying to slow the dumb thing down. And the more thing that the talent has to do, the more contrived it starts looking. Because you think, so I get the foot pedal, I got to press the foot pedal, and your face changes too. When you're trying to deal with other devices or a handheld iPhone out of view, things like that, you're trying to adjust it. So I can just slow down, and then I go faster if I want to read faster, and it pretty much keeps up. There was another item too, which the scroll settings, which is on the voice track, but there was one other one in here. The guide. There's a guide feature on here. I think I used that one in the guide style. Yeah, all right, so put that one on there. It's definitely good, and I'll show you the studio. So that's the guide. So it depends on how you work. Some people read a couple lines, absorb a couple lines. Some people focus on the exact line. In the early days when I was doing video on the internet, I used to have talent come in, and they would try to do these things and find there were different kinds of capabilities. The teleprompting machine was in the thousands of dollars to set up. So I'll show you mine, and then I think I'm pretty much done. We want John first because he had the big topic. I was just the filler. Let's see. So let's see. Well, they were on here the last time I looked. Oh, I know what I did with them. They're not here. They're moving things around. I need my app assistant. As soon as I see notes. There it is. Okay, so here is the teleprompter in my office, my studio area. And I had to pay under $100. I'm cheap. I should say that on the actual camera it's running.
Yeah, it was our sunscreen.
Right, so that's the teleprompter, and what you need to do is get the light out, so it just has a felt cover that sits over the camera. Now, some of them are very fancy and how the camera is installed inside, and there's a big tripod underneath that sits on there, and you can actually see the camera right at this point because the brightness that's showing up in there, the camera shows up. That little silver part of the camera I don't use. Normally I just cover that with some little black felt itself. And you probably won't notice the camera, but you do want to see the camera because you really want to kind of keep your eyes at that point in there. And then of course you can see my way is trying to keep the extra felt from getting in the way. Also, these things always need to be covered with bags, because once the dust gets on them, they're a pain to clean. And then the next picture, the other picture, is the actual teleprompter in. So you can see that it's backwards. The text is reverse mirror on the iPad that's sitting in the holder, and then there it is showing up on the screen. And that's how that works. And then you start talking. Normally what I do is very short scripts. So I don't have a real long one. I don't want to do a speech. Like the Paul Harvey one is way too long. Normally I record in small pieces when I have fades. Otherwise, most of the stuff I do is actual software screen. That's it. PromptSmart. All right. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question on your methods here. If you sit down and write a summary of something, writing is different than talking.
Right.
So, if you look at that sheet and start talking about it and repeating the word for word, I think people are going to know you're reading. So how do you write something that's designed for talking as opposed to designed for reading?
Well, when I write things, it's usually small. It's only for being on the camera, usually. So that's usually when I script it.
What are you saying, practice?
Right, so it might be the introduction to, or what we covered. You might work those. It's usually what I do on there. But to do that is correct. The good writers can write it in a way it sounds like it's actually being said without reading. It is. But generally you're doing the teleprompting because all the words have to be read in the way they've been put up there. You just can't ad-lib it. You got to hear those words. For example, presidential address, the State of the Union address, all those words are carefully picked all the way across. So they want those only words to come out because they've already looked them all over. And so if any one of these words comes out, how's the press going to treat this word? So they've thought them over very carefully. So that's usually when you're using a teleprompter. And then it really is up to the talent to be able to make it sound good. So when I'm doing it, I do retakes. So when I'm actually reading something, it does sounds a little bit too read, I change it. And that's what's great about this software is that you can just change it right on the teleprompter. So you go in and say that word doesn't fit, or you change the word around. And then often when I read, if I'm reading it and I think another word needs to go in there, I'll put it in. And then I'll go back and edit the script for the future just in case. So even though it was written one way, it doesn't sound. So to answer your question, one, you got to practice the script. Does it sound contrived when you're reading it? So I will read my own scripts to make sure that they sound good for me. Bruce, you may take my script and say, I don't think I say it that way. I need to say it a little differently. Could you rewrite it this way? And we rewrite it for you. So you can do it more naturally. But the only reason you want to do the script is because you're trying to stay within a time frame. You have limited time. Often find talent will go on and on and on. So there's some limit to where they're going to talk. The script kind of gets them in there. It's a whole big field. So that's a learning from doing. No, not trained at Harvard on it though. Other questions on it? All right, good. That's all we have. That's the end of the show, folks.